world. Ooh, then where you come from? Yes, it is not. Yeah, here's a chance to make it. Yeah, if we focus on our goals, you can dish it, you can take. Yeah, just remember that you've been told it's a different world. Yeah, it's a different world. Hey, then where you come from? Ooh, then where you come from?
And welcome once again to Leroy's podcast. First of all, let me apologize for last week. We were unable to get to you because of things not under our control at all. And I apologize once again this evening for coming on late, but once again, not under our control. Promise you that we will do better. And thank you very much for being patient, and thank you very much for tuning in. Hope everybody had a great 2 weeks since the last time we had a chance to talk. I've just had some great experiences, some ups and downs as it relates to who we are and what we're doing. Came out of Juneteenth, watching us celebrate when we discovered what was the real time we were supposed to have been freed. That was funny. It seemed to me that people who know that they are free know why they are free, know when they became free. And then for generations after they said that they were free to discover that they were free and then celebrate that they are free, wow, that's kind of crazy. But we, as usual, will do anything that says to others that we understand who we are and you can define what we are. Juneteenth, 1865. I guess some of you might know the history. Some of you just discovered what the history was. I won't spend any time trying to articulate what that history is at all. If you don't know you're free, then you never will be free. And once you know that you are free, then you never know that you ever have not ever been free. So I don't worry about Juneteenth at all. And then we left Juneteenth and we came into July the 4th, America's Independence Day. We celebrate July the 4th. When we say that we just discovered that we are free, but we're not yet independent, we still are dependent. We still say that we can't do anything because white folks won't let us do anything. We can't do anything because of racism being practiced in 2021. So are we still independently dependent on the past? Seems like we are. Are we free, as we say that we are in 1619 versus Juneteenth? Seems like we are. So what did we celebrate on July the 4th? Did we put out the flag? Did we salute the flag? Did we say America is the greatest place and that we are independent, we are free from the sovereignty of England and other places? Or just did we fire up the grill, put on some ribs and some hamburgers and some hot dogs, drink some beer, and play some games under the pretense that we are celebrating Independence Day when we do everything to send to the world the reality that we are still dependent? So what did we do on July the 4th? What did we celebrate? Or did we just, as usual, pretend before July 4th that we are not independent, that we are not free, and then come July the 4th, we go through the charade that we are? Kind of crazy. I don't know how to explain it to your children, but we don't try to explain it to your children because we are free year round here at the Urban League of Greater Miami. And when Independence Day comes, it's just another day for us because we have been, quote unquote, independent every day of the years. Didn't start July the 4th, it started July the 3rd, and went on through to July the 4th. So it's been an up and down kind of time for us, going through all of these kinds of emotions, but that's what it's all about. Here at the Urban League, we stay focused on what we're doing, and know that we've got to do what we're doing. We still believe that what we've got to do is left up to us. That whether or not we have been emancipated is left up to us. If we behave like we're not emancipated, then folks won't believe that we are emancipated. But when we believe that we can do what we want to do when we want to do it, no matter what others think about it, then we are free. So we are independently free here at the We Rise podcast, and I hope that all of you who are watching us feel the same way. Great things have happened since the last time we talked. Not only Juneteenth, not only July the 4th, but great things happened. Guess what? The test scores came out. Guess what? They passed. And guess what? They say that we passed. I don't believe that. Those of us who know, you know that our focus is on closing the achievement gap. You know that our We Rise Village focuses on turning around the 13 schools in Liberty City and thereabout. You know that what we do is deal with those schools that are predominantly black schools and try to make sure that as we deal with them, we bring about some equity and parity with the educational testing outcomes. So when the test scores came out, and the school board and everybody raised their hands and shouted, "We are at a school," once again. And everybody was happy. I didn't understand that. So maybe you can help me understand that. How is it that we are in a district, but the schools that we are concerned about are performing below expectations? How real is that pyramid with a line across it, an A for all of us? We don't think so, not in Liberty City. Now, when I reacted to the announcement about them being an A district, and when I tweeted out to the public that I am not at all satisfied because there are no A schools in Liberty City. Well, those who said, "There he goes again," sent me the list, called me up, and said to me that, "Oh, that's not correct. We have A schools in Liberty City." Let me correct that before I get to my real concern. Irvington Heights is not in Liberty City. Punta Park is not in Liberty City. We have been fooled once again to believe that anything that is black west of I-95 is Liberty City. That's not true. And when we allow people to expand their definition of our blackness, then they can lull us to sleep about our progress. Punta Park. Do we know anything about Punta Park? Well, Punta Park was a white school in the 50s. Punta Park was a school that we had to, as a community, picket and challenge to desegregate. Punta Park was a white school that Mrs. M. Atherley Range took her oldest son to demonstrate that they must let him in. That's Punta Park. That's not Liberty City. Irvington Heights, that's not Liberty City. Irvington Heights is in Brownsville. Irvington Heights is on 27th Avenue. Irvington Heights is not in Liberty City. Now, you may say, well, that's not important. It is important because we're talking about progress of a community. It is important when we allow those who have a tendency, known or unknown, to oppress us, to redefine how we progress. So I'm not going to let anybody convince me that what is going on outside of Liberty City is now Liberty City, because everybody outside of Liberty City that used to be white is now black. Another game. So when you look at the list, I strike off the 2A schools because they are not in Liberty City. And also when you look at the human composition of those schools and the character and the experience of the students in those two schools, you will find out that it's uniquely different from those schools between 22nd Avenue and 7th Avenue. You will find that there is a measurable, quantifiable difference between those schools that are located in that geography as opposed to those schools that are located in my geography. So there's a way that those who oppress us have a way of really convincing us that we are making unique progress when we ain't making no progress. But that's what they do, and that's what they do because they know that they can do what they want to do and say what they want to say, and you will believe it. Well, the podcast tells you, we rise, that that's not true. Somebody help me. Somebody hit me up. Somebody tell me that children who were behind before the pandemic, not 1 month behind, not 2 months behind, but years behind. Somebody tell me, did those children make the kind of quantitative progress that allowed them to be A schools? Don't say so. Doesn't look like they did. But yet, the system is an A system. Those schools in Liberty City, those schools that were behind before the pandemic, all of a sudden, they made enough progress that now they can be added into the equation that makes Dade County a school? I don't think so. Then when you look at the number of schools that were behind, and then everybody was behind, which means that the equation is not realistic. The point I make is that don't let anybody really dupe you into believing that we are doing okay. The formula is not a formula that says that it measures correctly where we are in comparison to where we were, not to where they are. Because before the pandemic, we were behind. After the pandemic, we are further behind. So what makes anybody think that I ought to be jumping up and down because the district is an A district when my children are still being educationally murdered every day, and we still say we are an A district? But I don't blame other folks who allow us to think that that is correct. But I do blame those school board members who look exactly like me when they jump up and down and hold hands and shout that we are an A district, when they know that the majority of the children in districts 1 and 2 are nowhere near where they ought to be, when they know that the reading scores are the worst today than they've ever been yesterday, when they know that there was nothing for them to celebrate at all, but in the name of collegiality, they held hands and they pontificated and postured as if this was a great, great event. The first time we got an A, the superintendent invited me down to be part of the public announcement. He made sure that I was positioned right. He made sure that I had a sign in my hand. He made sure that the world was aware of the fact that I was at the press conference. I knew I was being used, but he was my friend. So I said, okay, I'll let you use me. But I said to him, I'm not coming back until we have some real A schools in my village. So I come because I understand what we are doing, but I'm not coming back until we have real A schools, not formula manipulated A schools, but real A schools in my village. I didn't go back, and I don't plan to go back. And I think that our community should be up in arms about the fact that we are an A school publicly, when the most that we can say realistically, the schools that are predominantly attended by us are not A schools. Should we be concerned about that? We think so. Is there something that we can do about that? Yes. The first thing we can do about that is what we've said to the superintendent and what we've said to the school board, is that we have to understand that in order to get equal outcomes for equal participation in the educational process, so that we can move all students towards a real A, is that we must accept first that all students who enter into the first grade don't come prepared to move at the same pace, the same kind of instructional modality as all other first graders. That we must understand that these children are different. And therefore, if we understand that they are different, then how we teach them, who teaches them, is uniquely different. We must understand that if we're going to move all children in the system equally towards the goal of being A, that the process for doing that is uniquely different. That one process does not give us the same kind of outcomes for everybody. That's tough. It's easier not to do that. It's easier to design a formula whereby if a percentage of these make this score and a percentage of those make that score, then the combined score can move you to that position. Because what you do is you make sure that there is enough weight on this side to balance off the lack of weight on that side. And then you move to an A position. So at the end of the day, you could have an A school where a significant portion of the students in that school are not reading on grade level, but it's an A school. You can be in a school where X number of children can score at this level. And because they score at this level, they can make the tide rise to an A position in spite of the children at that level. The school that I'm most involved in, Liberty City Elementary School, got a C. But I can tell you that a significant number of those who are in that school are not C students, but they're two teachers. They're two teachers, Ms. Hayward and Ms. Gator, who are excellent teachers, who are able to teach in spite of the circumstances, who care, who dare to be different in their teaching process, who bring their children up to this level. And because they bring them up to this level, they make the children at this level rise according to the formula. Not according to achievement, but according to the formula. You know, means then that you can have a couple of good classes, and those good classes can make the whole school a different school in terms of testing outcomes and rewards. That's how it's working. That's how we can say that we're an A school when all of the colored schools are nowhere being an A school. Something's wrong with that. And we ought to be concerned about that. We ought to demand that it be fixed. We ought to demand that an A is a real A for all children in the system, and an F is a real F for all children in the system. And we should not be able to work some hocus pocus stuff, which sends the message that, oh, that's an A school, when half of the children are still dumb. I don't blame the adults for doing it, because it's all about making sure that they keep their stature and that they maintain their position. And all they have to do is give the illusion that things are great and moving forward. What right person in their mind would be convinced that coming out of the pandemic, that we are a real A when we've been locked down, when we've been on virtual, when teachers have been at their wits' end, when children have been tied up in emotional knots? And then we have a formula which says that we are an A district. That only serves the adults. It does not serve the children. It rewards the adults. It gives the illusion that things are okay, but it's not. One of the telling points that says that, once again, it's not, is that the reading scores are not going this way. The reading scores are going this way. And the foundation for learning is reading. And when we look at the reading scores by ethnicity, by geography, by school population, we see the direct correlation. But as we weight the formula, then we can make up for those deficits in Liberty City by making sure that Carl Gables, which was up here before the pandemic, is now here. And even though Carl Gables is here and used to be up there, Liberty City was here and Liberty City is down here. But the gap, you see, was not significant enough for Carl Gables not to raise us up in the process. Now, if an 82-year-old colored man can figure this out, don't you think that those who are supposed to be our representatives, because we voted for them to be our advocates, ought to be able to figure this out? Don't you think it would have been appropriate for my school board members who represent my village to have said, we are proud to be part of Dade County Public Schools? We celebrate the fact that according to the formula that we have so matriculated into the process, that we are an A school. But we know that this is not realistic. This does not represent what is the reality in our districts. And while we celebrate this achievement, we know that in order for it to be real, long-term, in districts 1 and 2, these things must happen. I thought that would happen. I thought that they would seize upon this opportunity to say loud and clear that yes, we're proud to be part of Dade County. Yes, we're proud of this designation as an A district. But as we're proud, we're also concerned. We're concerned about the fact that it does not truly represent our children. And therefore, as we go forward, as we come out of the pandemic, we want to make sure that these things happen. We sent a letter to the school board members articulating what they should do in order to make sure that coming out of the pandemic, that there is a process in place that allows us to catch up. It was called Fix It, Not Rearrange It. It was called recognizing that there comes a time in your life when circumstances present you with an opportunity to do things that you wanted to do that you never could do, but because of the circumstances that are new and the chaos and confusion that surrounds them, you can do those things. So we said now is a good time. We can talk about differential teaching methodology. We can talk about a different set of standards based on economic composition and poverty. And no one can get upset about it because everybody now is trying to catch up. So while Carl Gables by the Sea has designed a formula for its children to catch up, and they're going to do that, we now can say we're going to design a formula that's different from yours so that we can catch up. So what we've said is that the pandemic could be a blessing in disguise. For it allows us to do things and say things that no one can accuse us for not being quote unquote appropriate, but simply being concerned. So I think that things could be different. And that's what we said in our letter to the school board. Why don't you, as you talk about closing the achievement gap, could be able to define what has to be done differently in order to close that gap? Why don't you take advantage of this opportunity that has been presented by the pandemic to now say that the formula for coming out is separate and equal? That the formula for coming out is separate and equal, that it has nothing to do with race, but it has everything to do with the level of starting point. That the first graders over here, because of a variety of reasons, and race is not going to be one of them, and first graders over here because of a variety of reasons, economic and whiteness is not going to be one of them, that this is the track. That in order to get these kinds of outcomes in these two different sets of children, that the adults who are quote unquote in charge of doing that have to be uniquely trained different. So we know that in order to have a first grader reading on the second grade level in the 9-month period, who comes from Liberty City, who comes from Little Haiti, who comes from Coral Gables, who comes from Key Biscayne, that because they bring different kinds of experiences, different word commands, different behaviors, that how you get them to a certain level of state expectations, the process is uniquely different. And therefore, those who are in charge, the teachers who are in charge in order to do that, also are uniquely different. So as we talk about coming up, not only do we recognize that what has to be done is uniquely different, but it now moves into preparation, which means then that Florida International University School of Education, St. Thomas and other places, have to now have a special track if you're going to teach in Liberty City, as opposed to teaching in Coral Gables. That if you're going to teach in Liberty City, how you understand and how you manage behavior, all of those cultural things now enter into the classroom that most colleges of education don't prepare you for. And that's why in Liberty City, as opposed to other communities, teachers are frustrated and they simply do what we call maintaining order. No, we're teaching, if you be quiet, And just turn the page when I tell you to turn the page. And if you learn, it's okay. But if you don't learn, it really doesn't matter, because what I'm supposed to do is not teach you, but to transfer you through a process. So at the end of the day, you said that according to ETO standards, the first 6 weeks we should be on page 90. The next 6 weeks we should be on page 180. And whether you learn is not really significant. If a portion of you learn, then it means that I'm a good teacher. It's crazy. And we now have a chance to react to that insanity. But we won't do that if we continue to allow folks to fool us. So I think we were fooled. I think that while we are in a district, we're not in a district across the board. I understand the formula. The formula is fixed so that the adults survive in the process. It's not in the best interest of the children. It has nothing to do with quote unquote racism. It has everything to do with what is politically expedient and convenient for those who are quote unquote teachers and those who are administrators. Who celebrated that we are in a district? The school board and the administration. I saw no parents from Liberty City to La Haiti to Coral Gables to Miami Gardens to Opa-locka. I saw no parents running down the street saying, "We are in a district." I only saw the folks who get rewarded for the masquerade, jumping up and down. But we're not going to do that at the Upper Leg. I know that my comments and observations are not quote unquote popular. I know that some folks say, "There he goes again." But what you can say is that I'm still consistent. What you can say that it ain't personal. What you can say is that I'm concerned only about the future of the children that we say that we're concerned about. And when we who are the adults, when it's on our watch, and we know that it makes no sense, then we have an obligation and a moral responsibility to say it loud and clear. It makes no sense. So A for effort, A for a disguise, which sends the illusion that everything is all right. Everything is not all right. This is one of the worst moments in the history of public education in our life. And once again, if we don't speak up, speak out, be aggressive, then the greatest victims will be us and the future of our children. If you agree, hit me up. If you don't agree, hit me up. But in the meantime, that's what we believe at this place called the We Rise podcast. We're coming out of this quote unquote era. We're getting ready now to move on with life. Because once again, nothing stops the system from doing what it has to do in order to make sure that those that it's supposed to be concerned about move on. So our new superintendent, who has made it very clear that he is still in the drop, that he is going to retire in 2 years, has restructured, reorganized the entire operations. So many people got promotions, so many people got lateral promotions, so many people got vertical promotions. People just moved on, moved up, moved out. I would really be concerned as a parent about a superintendent who's already said that I'm going to be here for 2 years, who's already said that I am in the drop. I live in Broward, but I'm not going to move to Dade County, even though I'm going to have to leave a charge to convince Dade County property owners to allow us to raise their taxes so that a portion of the millage can be increased for public education. But I'm not paying taxes in Dade County. I live in Broward County, but I'm coming to Dade County asking you to pay more taxes, and you ought to do it. You ought to make the sacrifice, but I'm not going to make no sacrifice. And then on top of that, I'm leaving in 2 years. But in the meantime, I'm going to make all these promotions. Whoa. Somebody help me. You ain't staying. You're not going to make any sacrifices that creates an inconvenience for you. But you're not going to change the system. And there's no concern. There's no outcry. There's no responsible school board member or community group saying, hold up, what's going on? Why? Do we not understand that part of what we just got to talking about, if not all of what we just got to talk about, and that is how we measure the educational outcomes of the children is related to who is managing the institution at all levels? Are these promotions in the best interest of correcting educational outcomes for the children? Or are they in the best interest of promoting self? This is not an anti-superintendent person. I like him. I met him. He's a nice person. But it is our responsibility to make sure that all of the decisions made are in the best interest of improving the educational outcomes of the students that we've entrusted the system to. And to have wholesale rearrangement of the bodies and their responsibilities, and not have as the core foundation of that decision educational outcomes better for the children. More importantly, for the children that I'm concerned about, I'm upset about that. So it's not an anti-right for the superintendent to do what he did. But it says to me that in light of where we are and what we've got to deal with, that promotions and elevations and reorganization ought to be in the best interest of making sure that when we have the next test, that the A is becoming more real for all of the schools that we are responsible for. Just to, in the name of the name, make those kinds of structural changes concerns me. Now, folks say, well, the superintendent has a right to do what he or she wants to do. He does. But I have a responsibility to make sure that as he executes his rights, they're in the best interest of the children that I'm concerned about. So, Mr. Superintendent, I think that one of the things that I would suggest that you do for me is simply hit me up and say, I did this because in doing this, I believe that I'm going to get a better educational outcome for the children that live in the city. I did this because had I not done that, then the educational outcome for the children would have been this. I just think that given where we are, given what we've got to go through, given the challenges that are before us for the next decade or more, that everything we do has to be grounded in better educational outcomes for the children that we're serving. to do things because they are politically correct, to do things because they are expected by certain groups, really is unacceptable to me and to the urban legal grapevine. So I just want parents who are concerned about 2022 and beyond that we've got to pay strict attention to everything that happens. And we've got to have an agenda to make sure that we voice our concerns when we believe that those things are not the right things. So towards this end, we are creating a parent posse whose focus will be to monitor everything that goes on in the public school system, because it is obvious that our representatives are not going to do that. If you want to be part of our parent posse, then leave in the chat box your name, address, and telephone number. We've created a robocall agenda, and we're going to have our first meeting in August, and we're going to make sure that there is a powerful voice of concerned parents who are determined to make sure that when there is an announcement that there is an A designated district called Miami-Dade County, that all children would jump up and shout, because they know that the A that we got is the A that they got. And when that happens, what a glorious day it's going to be. So our parent council, our parent posse is going to be that instrument. And I just believe that when parent power becomes the power, then politicians will only come to us when it's time for us to vote for them. And they believe that they can convince us, and they do, to vote for them simply because of the fact that they are colored, or that we like them and they like us. And we can believe that they're going to do what they're going to do because they look like us and we look like them. I ain't voting for nobody just because of the color of their skin. I ain't voting for nobody who thinks that I ought to vote for them because of the color of their skin. And I'm going to be articulating with my parents that we will vote for you if you are willing to carry out the issues that are important to us. And if you get in and don't do it, then we will lead the recall to take you out. I'm sick and tired of being sick of folks who run on being black, who say that they are black, who then get to be victorious and then end up being everything but black, who believe that it is a shame and disgrace for them to be an advocate for us when it is not, quote unquote, popular, who say that it's about race when it is to their advantage to say it's about race, who believe that things ain't gonna change, and since things ain't gonna change, I might as well make the best out of this situation for me. So at the end of the day, nothing has happened that we can measure for us, but things have happened that they can measure for them. I want my parent posse to say enough is enough, that nobody can use us but us. And that when you say you are for us and then use us, then we will say that we will not trade in white slave masters for black slave masters, that we will treat all people the same who treat us indifferently. And I want my parent posse to be an advocate for that. It ain't personal. So it's not that it's about a personality. It's about a process. Process which says that if you say that you're for me and you don't do anything for me, then I cannot say that I'm not for you. Because if I say I'm not for you because you didn't do anything for me, then I am not being fair. Where the parent posse is going to be fair. The parent posse is going to make sure that all school board members, particularly those who say that they represent us, particularly those who have a significant number of quote unquote children of color in their district, that we're going to be advocates for their election and their re-election, and that we're going to have an agenda. I'm not just going to vote for somebody because it is time for us to vote for somebody. We need to design, and we will design our own manifesto as to what we want you to do. It will be realistic. It will not be pie in the sky. It will be things that can be achieved by the aggressive behavior of those who are in charge. It will be left up to us to make sure that not only do we define what we want, but define what we want because it is realistically attainable. And when we do that, then we begin to say we are ready. So having done that, then when it's time for us to be graded as a district A, B, C, D, or F, then we will know what's real and what's fake. We will know what is a real A and what is a fake A. We will know that the announcement is the one that we all can shout about, that not only should the school board be happy, but those of us to whom the children belong to, those of us who are concerned about the children will also be happy because we know that the things that should have been done were done in an equitable fashion. And everybody can say hallelujah. It was great for us to do that. So we're excited about where we're going. We're going to release our program agenda. And at the core of what we're going to be doing in 22-23 is mobilizing parents, mobilizing concerned adults, mobilizing people from Coral Gables to Surfside to say, let's make sure that when there is an A, it speaks to the fact that all children in the system have achieved. And when we can say that, when we can believe that, when we know that that is real, then what a day, what a victorious day it will be. So it's not them, it's us. It's not Juneteenth, it's us. It's not July 4th, it's us. It is a day of us that we must celebrate throughout the year. It is a day of us that we must celebrate because we have a plan of action that has to be made into reality. It's a day of us that when we have a plan of action, when we're there to be aggressive in its formation and implementation, then those who are concerned will have to deliver. And their deliverance will not be based on the fact that they may be Black or they may be Hispanic or they may be Black or they may be white and they may be Hispanic. It will be based on the fact that a group of concerned parents and caring adults have recognized that achievement is the issue for advancement, and that they understand that the future of the children rests not in the color of their skin, but rests in the color of their expectation of the adults who are around them. And when adults expect children to succeed, then they do the things that they have to do in order for them to be successful. And when they don't, they just create a magic formula which says we are in a district. We are, not the children of A students. We are in a district. And you get excited because it then says that Dade County is something special. But at the end of the day, it is something special for a select few of children. I want it to be special for every child, and I'm sure you do. So be on the lookout. Send me your telephone number, send me your name, so that I can invite you to our parent posse meetings, because it's going to be based on our ability to mobilize people to think, believe, and act in a certain way as it relates to the educational outcomes of the children that we entrust the system to. So, we got a plan. depend upon you to pass the word, tell folks to give me a call. And if you disagree with what we are articulating, if you got something better, I'm prepared to listen. But as by now, you know that I just don't make up stuff to have a podcast conversation. What I say on this podcast is what we are going to do. What I say on this podcast is what we are going to do, in spite of, if not because of, others' reaction to it. What we say on this podcast is now enshrouded in the program prospectus of the agency for 22-23. So this is not just a conversation. This is not just some idle talk, but it is at the core of what we believe. That is that achievement matters, that when we close the achievement gap, when we restore value to education and achievement, that all of these conversations about Juneteenth, July 4th, etc., becomes just another way that America expresses itself. And since we are educationally part of America, then we can then celebrate those days like everybody else. But when we can't read and they can read, when we don't believe and they believe, when they advance and we are not, then it don't matter whether it was June 15th or June 14th. It don't matter whether it's July 4th or July 2nd. It don't matter, because things will not have changed, and things only change when every school in the district is an A school. Hit me up. Sorry that we were late, and we'll see you next week.
See, the conversation that doesn't want to be validated is, we fought for centuries to be accepted in a land that never valued us, but allowed us. You used our gifts and talents and made a mockery of us, but never developed us. Community unity was labeled as terrorist schools, successfully infiltrated and ultimately dismantled by COINTELPRO. As a people, we endured abuse, sexual assault. We were taken away from our families, we were lynched, and most importantly, stripped away from our spirituality. We were given an identity and a name that didn't represent who we were. Through all the years of trauma, we still rise. We push through the educational barriers that was not afforded to us. See, they don't understand there's no stopping our progress. Despite we got to keep going. Through the police brutality, through the broken system that incarcerated people of color at a higher rate than any other race. We got to keep going. My kings and queens, look at us. They can't stop our progress.
We've been tested and rested and stamped on for most of our life. Been beaten, mistreated, and murdered, unjustified. Black men, keep going.
Keep going. Keep growing. Resilient man, keep showing up. Your presence is the potion. Your focus is the target. Magic man, keep sowing seeds into your future. Don't bargain with the beggars brought in. Make them binge watch your growth from the sideline. Big energy, keep choosing to be chosen. Keep the gift, take it off safety. Wave it in their faces, keep elevating. Without permission, keep being the promises of our ancestors and the dreams of our children. Keep defying odds, keep going hard. Keep believing God, keep breathing through the fall. Don't stop.
One can bring back all of the tears you cried. Just know that you got the power to take back what's deep inside.
Black woman, keep glowing, keep pouring. Keep watering these lands with the drip of your melanin. Keep demanding your appreciation. Keep it at a distance from those who waste it. Keep your worth up. Keep birthing love and other multiplying things. Keep that dust off of your beautiful wings. Follow that which seems to you in bold truth. Keep your lens locked on the light. Reach for it with your whole life. Submit to what you know is right. Don't think twice. No second guessing. You are the blessing. You are the message.